My name is Jim Becker, and I'm the President and CEO of the Richmond Community Foundation, and welcome to today's summit. This is the 6th annual Northern California Summit on Children and Youth, and our theme this year, Bridging the STEM Diversity Gap, Building the Next Generation Workforce, builds off of our 2014 summit, which focused on the challenges we face creating equity for boys and men of color. Lack of diversity represents a loss of talent. There is no evidence at all that the ability to develop into a scientist differs across our socially constructed lines of identity. Thus, the large and persistent underrepresentation of women and of boys and men of color from the enterprises in STEM represents a loss of talent. Most children born in America today are non-white, and half of all those children will be female. Thus, the STEM diversity gap which exists represents a challenge to our ability to cultivate an adequate workforce. Our goal for today is to engage all of you, business leaders, nonprofit leaders, educators, and government leaders, in the strategies necessary to close the STEM diversity gap and to build our local and regional STEM workforce.
The Richmond Promise is a program that's going to guarantee that for the next 10 years, every single young person who lives in the city of Richmond, goes to public school, and graduates will have money guaranteed for college. As we open up the Berkeley Global Campus, then we're going to see, at least in Richmond, that our young people, men, women, Black, Latino, white, Asian, Indian, whatever, are able to achieve and do as good as any young person in the world. And that's the focus that I'm glad that the Richmond Community Foundation has, and that's the focus that I will continue to have on the City Council.
I know for the people in this room, the expectations are high, and you believe that the potential of our young people is limitless. But it goes again back to our expectations. If our expectations are in construction jobs, service jobs, supply line jobs, supporting an international research facility that focuses on STEM, then we are selling our young people short. At last count, the Lawrence Berkeley National Lab produced 13 Nobel Prize winners. And in my mind, and in your mind, I know, there is absolutely no reason why future Nobel Prize winners in science, technology, education, math, research, in any field can't come out of Richmond's local public schools.
We're beginning to think about ourselves and not only, again, as a healthcare provider, and not only as community benefit, but what you see up there is an image that we're beginning to think about, which is our thinking of Kaiser Permanente as a total health impact organization. And by that, what we mean is we're looking at across all of the assets of our organization, from construction to workforce development, to procurement, to environmental sustainability, and thinking, how can we first understand the full range of the impacts that we're able to have in our communities?
There is no child that is born in this world, no child born in this country, no child born in California or in Contra Costa County or in Richmond who cannot excel at STEM or anything else that they choose to do. If they are given that encouragement, if they're shown how to do it, what the skills are, they're given the support and they're given the opportunity. So we start with that premise. We start with understanding that is all possible.
And I say to teachers all the time, our instructors, when I talk to them, that they can make or break a student's day with a sentence, with an expression. We have so much power in our words and just our interactions with people. And that's just a very, very basic thing, but I think it goes a long way in inspiring young people. And the younger they are, the better. I think we need to be so careful about how we treat people, and especially how we treat students.
So what I know works is this. There are great success stories for business-led engagement for workforce development. And that is one of the things that East Bay EDA is championing. So 2 days ago, Tuesday, 300 students from Richmond, Emeryville, Berkeley, and Oakland came to a property held by one of our partners, Wareham Development. They had engagement with over 30 companies, including Pandora, and also groups like UC Berkeley School of Public Health, who's here. And they had lunch with them. They went on tours to their companies. They saw exhibits of what their employees do. And every student was prepped to ask a couple questions. They asked, what did you study to get your job? How much money do you make? How do you like working in your company? When you work in a team, what does that mean? They had a chance to ask those kind of questions. They won't learn that in a classroom. They won't have an opportunity like that in the classroom. But that is one of the business-led strategies that is a long-term goal, but we need to open the eyes of students, especially those who don't have STEM professionals in their lives, and let them know there are all kinds of jobs. Students went to the BMW dealer, and they said, oh my gosh, working on a car means I need to know how to run a computer. You know, a car is just a computer on wheels nowadays.
Right? When you're inspired by something, it's like sports. Why do kids want to go into sports? Because you get paid a lot of money and it's really cool. So why would kids want to go and get into business? You get paid a lot of money and it can be really cool.
Excellent. And one other thing, I think we need to involve the students in the conversation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We plan for them all the time without their input, and I just don't think that's smart. They're the victims. And they're part of any discussions that take place about their future, right? Yes. Or about their learning. They're the victims, well, I hate to use that word, but they're the ones who are on the receiving end of the decisions we make. And they need to be in those preliminary discussions, I think.
The planned global campus coming to Richmond has opened up a lot of new avenues for collaborating and partnering with UC Berkeley in these areas. And we're pursuing multiple avenues virtually as we speak. You know, this thing about infrastructure is interesting. We had our first business roundtable last month, and where we invited new businesses that are very successful to share with us why they came to Richmond and what kind of problems or issues they have once they got here. And it's interesting that all of them cited the lack of public transportation to get their employees who don't have cars to get them to work. And that's a major challenge for them.
You know, sometimes our kids, they want to understand what good looks like. And we can talk about it, but it's really nice when they can actually see it. And they can see it in someone that actually looks like them. Because sometimes the other conversation is just conversation. But when you see examples that you can look at and you can say, he was where I was or she was where I was, and this is where they are now, it makes it real and often lasting.
And speaking of STEM, there's a perfect example a moment ago as to why we need more diversity in STEM. It took us 35 minutes to get this presentation up on the board, and I'm supposed to be at the top of the food chain in technology, and they told me to get out of the way. So please get more people in STEM. We need it because as it stands now, we're failing miserably. Think about being nice to people, and what do I mean by that? My dad, people always talk about, oh, my grandma taught me this or told me this, and I remember the saying that my uncle used to tell me all the time. I don't remember any of that. I remember my dad telling me one thing, and he said to be nice. If you're starting another photo app that helps, you sort your pictures in your phone, right? Versus the kid that comes to us and pitches us about an app that helps children with autism because that person has a brother or sister who's autistic. Well, guess what? That person, that guy is going to stick with it because he has a bigger purpose, and it doesn't matter if we fund them or not. They're going to stick with it. And I've invested about $2 million in these guys that you're going to see up here, just to give you an idea. That's what they look like. I want to come back here and be very instrumental in making this place better.
What a wonderful way to think about the people who come out of our community and who go on to success and then come back and give back. Thanks, Eric, again.
One of our main initiatives, what we call Aspire, is all about helping keep kids in school and preparing them for success moving into college and career. Down in our facility in San Ramon, we have a number of students throughout the year come for job mentoring and job shadow experiences. We do that with Junior Achievement, and we really enjoy partnering with them. Again, to give our students an opportunity to see what their future could be like. And when it comes to STEM, as a high technology company, we're right there. We really need our students to get involved in these areas. You know, if you think back to the way that technology has moved in the communications industry, it's really incredible. When I started with the company, it was all about dial tone. It was all about that phone in your home. You look at it today, you talk to students, they don't even have that phone in their home anymore. It's all about data in their pocket. And we want to make sure that they're prepared to utilize it appropriately and for good for themselves as well as for the rest of us.
At a really young age, I knew that life was hard, but I didn't understand why. And I was also the first one in both sides of my family to go to college. I loved school, especially science. There was something about it that I absolutely loved. I think what it was about science, that something in our life that we just take for granted can be so easily explained by science. Mom, Dad, why is the leaf green? Why is the sky blue? They couldn't answer it for me, yet they would say, I don't know, we'll go to the library tomorrow, or I don't know, let's go find out. Like my parents, they encouraged the idea of education, because to them they said, receive an education and you'll be in a better position than us, because we don't have what you'll have in this future, or like in your future. And I guess I was fortunate enough that my parents, despite the fact that they couldn't help me much with my schooling, that they were always there to say, you can do it, you can, as long as it's your best, that's all that matters.
We really need to learn to play well together because we've been doing things from systems perspectives. Each one of us has a particular goal in each of our entities that we work for and a way of doing things. And I think we always focus on what our institutions need in order to continue, rather than really thinking about how do we contort our institutions to really fit what our students need. And for way too long, we've been trying to contort our students into forms that fit our institutions.
She called my bluff. She called my father when she caught me really high in class one day. And my dad told me, you know, you got one or two options. Right now, the roadmap you're on leaves you dead or in jail, or you could do something with your life. It's up to you. That's what I was told. That night, I kind of felt embarrassed. I sat back, contemplated about everything I was doing. Kind of hard to face my teacher the next day, figuring that, you know, I'd had developed such a close relationship with her, telling her everything I wanted to be, and was doing nothing about it. So it took me about the end of my freshman year before I really decided to make a change for myself and do something for myself. So I started hanging around people who were interested in like STEM fields. Particularly, I was participated in Pioneers in Engineering, which is a UC Berkeley program. I really fell in love with that. I met a lot of friends through that, and that's where I really started to continue to go down on. If I were to be an ethical hacker, that's what I want to do with my life. And I mean that ethical, huge word there.
Yeah, I think that's an important point. You know, when the younger people are going through these huge transitions in life and they're heading down the wrong path, they're hanging around the wrong crowd, how do we get them on the right track? And a lot of that is there's these stereotypes of STEM not being cool or a nerd being a socially awkward person, right? And it's not true anymore. I mean, it was much more true when I was growing up than it is today, right? But I think the future for STEM is very bright, and if we can surround more younger people around like-minded people that have the same passion for that field of science, technology, engineering, or math, you're going to hear many more success stories like are up here.
Part of the problem is that it's all siloed, right? And so either the same few students are accessing 10 wonderful programs, or some of the students that are falling through the cracks are not gaining access to that information. And so as a community, I think we need to really think about creating a way to communicate those opportunities en masse.
The school district and the schools can't do everything, right? Which is why we have such an incredibly motivated and engaged group of people here that are providing wraparound services for these students. These are students that are either getting some of the support that they're not getting in the schools for whatever reasons, lack of funding or just changes of time, but they're getting them through wonderful nonprofit organizations, after-school programs, and things like that. I think this is what Myra is talking about, is somehow we have to come together and stop working in silos, or at least be more collaborative in our efforts, because we have the right people in the room, and reach the kids earlier, right? The students, not just in the academies at high schools, but even earlier than that, middle schools and elementary schools.
If we look at ancient civilizations, right, we look at the African contribution to math, if we look at the Latin American contribution to engineering, and we really look at those civilizations, math and science was learned and came out of the need of the community, right? So they began to work on social justice issues, and the math and science came out of that. We're doing things upside down, right? We're trying to educate our students to go out and figure out what problem they're going to solve, and it's some really narrow sliver that they don't know how it integrates with the larger whole, and they're really trying to get a meal. And so how can we take our educational system and create access for our students in a way that helps them meet their own needs? So can we look at engineering projects that really look at our local community and see what is of need here? Can we build those out? Can we get investors to really look at those kinds of projects so that they're not competing with each other for particular positions, but that they're helping resource the community in new ways?
Just like when you're trying to apply for any position in STEM, you can't fake passion. Your interviewer will always know whether you're passionate about it or not.
I used to go to work with my dad and my grandmother at a very young age. I don't know how many kids go to work with their parents anymore. And fortunately for me, and it wasn't like I was actually going to pursue a career in STEM, but my dad was working at, like I said, the observatory on top of a mountain, and later in life he was working at Moffett Field down at Ames Research Center in Mountain View. And my grandmother worked at the Army Corps of Engineers. And it wasn't like I was doing STEM-related stuff, but I was surrounded by it. So I was exposed to it. I saw opportunity that a lot of our kids here in Richmond don't. I think I told you I do a lot of work with the Boys and Girls Clubs, and some of our kids from the inner city of Richmond that go to our club, they've never been to the beach, right? They've never been to San Francisco. It's 20 miles away. So for me, I think it's, we have to do a better job of exposing our kids to these opportunities at a young age. And it doesn't have to always fall on the responsibility of the parents, but all of us as a collective group, I think that's our challenge.
One of the projects we're doing is I'm trying to get a collage of minority and diverse scientists and people in technology to hang on our walls in the college, right? Because even if we can't, bridge the hiring divide right now, there are examples of people who are successful that I want our students to see on our hallways. I want them to be able to look up and see like, hey, that girl or that guy looks kind of like me, or, he looks like my uncle or my aunt.
For me, it's a little different. The first thing I remember about ever developing an interest for anything with STEM was when I was young, and I got it from cartoons, watching Dexter's Laboratory, if I remember the cartoon. That made me want to be a scientist. I wanted to be just like that guy. My mom would laugh about it, and she would encourage me, saying, yeah, you could be a mad scientist, sure. but there was nothing really around me that helped encourage that drive. I didn't really develop a passion for any of it until my freshman year. And I think that has a lot to do with it, because looking at situations like yours, and I had a really close friend who really inspired me, goes by Naum. Him growing up, he had a close relationship with his parents, just like it seems like you have. He would play with Legos, build things, and he would do it with his dad, and his dad was worked with a lot of tools. So they would come together, they would build things together. And to me, I see it as, because I didn't grow up with this kind of parent interaction. So actually seeing that it actually has a lot to do with the parents interacting with the children and actually helping to encourage that, because like I had stated earlier, at a young age we can't see that bigger picture for ourselves. So it has a lot to do with the parents trying to help us guide it, trying to help drive that interaction at a young age. That way we don't get lost later on.
Okay, so we've come to the end of the day, and I want to thank you all for being here. I hope you enjoyed it. We have a reception for you hosted by Comcast that's right behind this wall, so as you leave, help yourself. I know that many of our speakers are still here. Feel free to network. I'd be remiss if I didn't thank, though, the staff of the Richmond Community Foundation who worked behind the scenes to put this event on. Thank you. So Stacy Street, Rowan Reeves, Monica Lazo, Pam Horan, who's in the back, Amma Jax, Betty Geisher-Cantrell, Yvette Urrutia, Tiffany Morataya, Kayla Vidal, and Mariana Moore, who've sort of been behind the scenes, moving signs, changing things so that folks know where to go, and I appreciate that. I would be remiss if I didn't thank our sponsors again, especially our gold and platinum sponsors, Kaiser Permanente, Comcast, California Endowment, Parker Veriflow, and many others. They're on the last page of your summit brochure, but we couldn't have done it without them.